Around the time this video goes up, it'll be the week after the anniversary of Akira Toriyama's passing. His works meant the world to me. As someone who's tried gaining confidence in my own art, seeing his free-form attitudes towards storytelling and art were more than simple inspirations. He didn't live up to standards, he invented his own. And because of that, he created truly unique masterpieces. Just simply, thank you for everything, Toriyama-san.
Please revive the one known as NRD Zilla. Huh. That's strange. Where is he? Oh, right. Because he had his body in heaven, he's got to physically come back to Earth somehow, too. I'm sure he'll be back soon enough.
Thanks, Salad, for gathering those Dragon Balls. I'm back in the land of the living, baby.
What took you so long?
I'd love to catch up with some small talk, dude, but King Kai told me that there's a great evil on the way, and we gotta get ready for it.
What happened to you?
Huh? Oh, you know, training under 10 times normal gravity and learning the Kaioken will change you quite a bit.
Oh, really? The Kaioken? How high?
Oh, how high? Well, times 2.
Oh, well, I mean, that's still impressive for a normal guy.
Never mind that right now. He'll be approaching soon, and despite my efforts, I don't think I'm strong enough to win right now as I am.
I see. Anyway, don't push yourself too hard out there.
Wait, what? You're leaving?
Yeah, I don't really think it's my problem, to be honest. Also, I gotta get back to making What If Broly wore leg warmers against Gogeta.
Okay.
You know, because it was cold in that movie.
Yeah, no, I get it. Go ahead. I'll figure something out. Myself.
Okay. See ya.
Well, what do I do now? I'm not sure I can beat this guy with my current strength. Perhaps I can develop a technique with my new style and all. I mean, when I think about it, whenever Toriyama faced a challenge in creating his manga, he would always find some solution to the issue he faced. So let's dig into that a bit. Akira Toriyama, known all over the world for both his insane story crafting and artistic talents. What can I really say? He's become a cornerstone of anime and manga, whose works have been constantly referenced and is inspiration for countless mediums today. There's nothing like his stories, and there'll never be anything like them again. Why? Because Toriyama's mind was something unique to himself, and it bled into everything he worked on. I want to go over just how his writing, designs, and general style changed over the years, and why there are core elements in them that can never be separated from any of his works. First off, Toriyama lived in the country at the start of his career. His fondness for it would leave an impression on his work, and he would use a lot of country settings because of it. Plus, they were far easier for him to draw than the busy cities of people, buildings, and cars. When he was little, he would watch anime like Astro Boy and Tetsujin 28 Go, Gigantor in the West. Though he insisted on the fact he didn't have any intentional inspirations when creating manga, he said the closest thing would be Astro Boy, as it was his favorite manga growing up. I also feel Tetsujin 28 Go could have potentially influenced how Toriyama drew some of his mechs. By the second half of primary school, he was watching live action shows and giant monster movies. He was into Gamera and would make references to him in his works, along with kaiju like Godzilla and King Ghidorah. He preferred dinosaur-type kaiju rather than the alien-type monsters, but he did make an exception for the Boltons of Ultraman. Speaking of, he mentions he enjoyed the original Ultraman series, but wasn't a fan of the ones afterward, calling the second iteration's design, Ultra 7's, a mess and not simple enough for his taste. Though funny enough, he would still reference Ultra 7 in his manga, especially through Yun Chi-Chi. Over the years, he started enjoying high-profile movies, as he calls them. And they in some way, probably subconsciously if you asked him, contribute as elements to future works. These would be movies like Star Wars, Wars, Jaws, Alien, and very notably, Enter the Dragon. I think you can already tell how each of these influenced his works to some extent. Up until the age of 23, he would create art for an advertising agency as a part-time job. However, he didn't feel like he was drawing the art he wanted to make and started drawing comics for fun. He would eventually enter his first comic in a competition called the Fresh Jump Award, hosted by Shonen Jump of course. And through trial and error, he would eventually land a place in Jump. His first published work was a one-shot called Wonder Island. You can find many of these old works and one-shots he did throughout the years of Dr. Slump and Dragon Ball in the Akira Toriyama manga theater collections. These are stories he was ashamed of being his early work, considering how much he felt he improved. When asked in an interview what he submitted to these competitions, he answered, "Gags, of course. They're the only things I can draw, after all." Eventually, his new series, Dr. Slump, became a breakout success. This series would be foundational to his style, showcasing exactly how he wanted to present a world and characters. To him, Penguin Village was a place where anything could happen. There's no set map of every location in the village, there's aliens and superheroes, and gags are abundant. Penguin Village is nice because you don't know what will appear. The nice thing about a gag manga is how it has this aspect where, at the very least, you're permitted to come out with anything. In my case, anything can talk, like the mountains. Funny enough, Arale was initially meant to be a one-off chapter invention of Dr. Senbei, but the editorial department told him she was a cute character and asked why he doesn't just make her the main character. He was hesitant at first, but was glad in retrospect that he heeded the advice. Toriyama would consult with his wife on whether certain clothes and designs would feel modern enough for the story, and he would definitely need that advice, as he would change what the characters were wearing to make things more interesting. He also felt that he always drew girls with the same face, and therefore gave Arale glasses as her distinguishing trait. She would fully embody that comedic spirit Toriyama was looking to achieve, as she could be as powerful as he wanted and basically do anything to further a gag or the story. While times would change, Toriyama would keep this foundation of a gag writer his whole life. But Toriyama is not one to enjoy creating a single manga forever. He said in an interview for the monthly Star Log, "What I can't predict is, well, how long I'll be drawing Dr. Slump for. I think that, as the years pass, the themes I'm inclined to draw will probably change as well." Around December of 1982, about the 150th chapter of Dr. Slump, Toriyama expressed interest in creating a new manga, one centered around Kung Fu. In the summer of the following year, he would then draft and release a story called Dragon Boy and eventually The Adventure of Tonpu. One could call these the roots of Dragon Ball. He would then come up with a concept for a new serial based on Journey to the West in January of 1984 and completing it by May. The first draft was far more like the mythical tale instead of resembling the story we know today. Goku was far more monkey-like in appearance, and the characters were more faithful to the original tale. However, he was pushed into creating something new for the second draft, and it almost resembled Dragon Ball as it came to be. He didn't have a title for the work yet, but he at least knew he wanted the main character to be named Son Goku. In August, Dr. Slump finally came to a close as Toriyama finished the first two drafts. And after years of creating and pushing this concept, Dragon Ball began serialization in November of '84. I want to break down how different aspects of Toriyama developed over the course of Dragon Ball and into the future beyond it. So, let's dive right into the Dragon world.
Goodbye, 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 bye!
The initial setting had a Chinese feel to it, much like the prototypes. But Toriyama didn't want to put limitations on the kind of places his characters would explore. He created many different locations from Kame House, West City, Kami's Lookout, and many more. During the Z portion of the story, he was told it would be a failure to go out into space in a shonen manga, so he designed Planet Namek to have architecture resembling the chair King Piccolo sat in for a bit of familiarity. When designing Heaven, he thought it'd be good to make it realistic, so it's treated like a business with those in charge being salarymen. He would create great detail into some of these locations and world building, but would often see the setting as secondary to the story. When discussing the universal map model, he had this to say: "This complete map was originally background information that I drew at the request of the anime people, but I took this opportunity to add the Kaioshin world, which wasn't included in the complete map before, to make it perfect." In truth, truth. This complete world map is something I made after I finished drawing the story, to make everything consistent. With me, I think up the story in advance, then come up with the world's background information to be consistent with it. I guess if I was a normal cartoonist who did things properly, I'd think up the background information first, then come up with the story. Saying that, you'd think I don't really think through anything. There's a vague image, even before I create the story. Toriyama's art style would dramatically change over time. Back in the days of Dr. Slump and early Dragon Ball, he would employ a rounder style. The proportions, the face, and the hair would always have rounded features and give a distinct level of cuteness. Subtle shifts in the shapes would become apparent over time, but the Saiyan and Namek arcs felt like the midpoint between this round style and the square style the Android and Buu arcs would be known for. He felt that round lines did not convey the sense of speed and intensity he was looking for, and so the lines became sharper to accommodate. In the Daizenshu 1, Toriyama touches on this shift in an interview. When I got into the second half of Dragon Ball, I had already become more interested in thinking up the story than in drawing the pictures. Then I started to not place much emphasis on the pictures. The battles became intense, and I gradually came to switch to more simple lines. At any rate, I despise doing the same thing. I'm fundamentally perverse that way. I got postcards from readers saying, compared to the old days, it's really square now. It was better the way it used to be. So I thought I'd go and make it even more square. Toriyama would always be fascinated by machines, and loved drawing some insane technical detail to each machine he create. You can see these plenty on the multitude of illustrations he create. A little side note, in an interview with his former editors, they said that Toriyama, in 10 years of drawing Dragon Ball, found only one illustration he was somewhat happy with. Not too surprising when you consider he always hated his past work, and would even say that he forgets something as soon as he draws it. The only art he liked was one of Goku and Gohan riding a bipedal motorcycle. He said that the balance was good, the composition was good, and that this was the only one he was pleased with. After Dragon Ball was over, Toriyama's art style would continue to change and adapt to the times. Many people think Toriyama fell off when it came to art, but that really isn't the case. I can't speak to people's preferences, but the actual quality Toriyama put out had vastly improved from his peaks in the Buu arc, where he suffered the most burnout. Neko Majin would showcase how this style changed from the late 90s into the mid 2000s, with the Z Fighters having a transitional phase between the Buu arc style and his modern one. As digital art became more prominent and accessible, he would transition to the medium, saying that he probably would have quit drawing manga altogether if he wasn't working by computer. Illustrations for the Kanza Band and manga like Sandland and Jocko the Galactic Patrolman were made in this style. It's always apparent by the distinct, thick lines, characters with smaller builds, but yet carried so much detail. Another great look into this evolution of his style comes from his continuous contributions to Dragon Quest, where you get a look at basically every era of Toriyama's art, from the 90s to now. So, the time has come. Face me then, I'm ready.
What's this? A foolish earthling who thinks they can stand against me. You're a bold one.
You think I'm unprepared? I trained for this day so that I could defeat you. I'd rather die than let you have your way with my planet. Kaioken ×2!
As you wish. Then you can go ahead and die.
Okay, so I had no way of beating that guy, like at all. It was just unironically a wash. I can't believe it. Was all my training for nothing? No, I gotta find a way to beat him. Well, I should just keep looking at Toriyama's journey. What did he do when he was exhausted and desperate? He said in the first volume of Dragon Ball that the overall story is very simple, but he'd like to make up the finer details and the ending as he goes along. He wished to reduce the playful elements seen from Dr. Slump and give more of a focus to a progressing story. This form of overarching storytelling was not something that Toriyama was quite as accustomed to yet, perhaps due to mainly writing episodic gag stories for years. This would cause him to lose track of small details here and there, but he would always manage to make the story easy to follow and coherent. His very first editor instilled into him the idea: draw comics so that they are easy to understand. in an interview with some of Toriyama's editors. Credit to Venixis on Twitter for the translation, as I will be using these throughout the video. They explained that Toriyama's writing style was simple and direct. There was never any long-term plan for the story, and he and the editors would follow a general direction and write the story week by week. Whenever they needed a plot twist, Toriyama would come up with one on the spot, such as Goku being revealed to be an alien called a Saiyan with next to no foreshadowing beforehand. He would just take existing ideas and say, boom, here's a plot twist, when those elements were never intentionally set up that way. Another good example is during the Buu saga, there was a moment when Toriyama decided experimenting with a different idea, the school chapter, featuring Gohan in high school and the Great Saiyaman. The idea was to try a lighthearted storyline, with Gohan attempting to hide his identity while experiencing small everyday adventures. However, after a few weeks, Toriyama got bored and abruptly abandoned it. As often happened if something became too complicated or unstimulating, he would drop it without much hesitation. The school setting required many crowded scenes filled with background characters, something Toriyama found tedious and time-consuming to draw. So if Toriyama was not really feeling the direction he was going, he would always find a way to pivot. This was especially easier in the Buu arc, where everything was more lax for him, and he had the freedom to switch up on any direction he went. Toriyama loved defying predictability. When asked in an interview, "Were you ever discouraged by the popularity polling system?" he responded with, "I'm the kind of person who doesn't worry about it too much. But if the response was extremely bad, there were times when I'd think, I wonder why. And also, I'm myself an extremely twisted person. So if, on a reader's postcard, it was written, that's this, and this'll happen like this, then I deliberately go on with a development where that didn't happen. And if a certain character got fairly popular, I deliberately kill them." This is reinforced by the Daizenshuu 5, where he said when he got a lot of requests to not kill Vegeta, that's when he decided to deliberately kill him. Goku being aged up in the 23rd World Tournament was an unprecedented change for a shonen protagonist at the time. Toriyama explained, "I got a lot of pushback on that at the time. Apparently, in shonen manga, changing what the main character looked like was a big no-no, but I didn't care about that. His head-to-body ratio made fighting hard, so I said that if the series was going to start focusing on more battles, then I needed to make him an adult. But this really shocked them. The series has finally gotten popular, and now you want to go and change everything?" That's the kind of reaction I got. He explained he drew adult Goku and sent it to his editors for their opinion. But before they could even respond, he was already starting the rough draft for the chapter. With no time to really make any revisions, the editorial staff told him, "If you're so dead set on doing this, then fine." One thing to keep in mind, when Toriyama is talking about his editors, it's always from his perspective, and usually a bit exaggerated. Torishima talked about this exchange in an interview, and from his perspective, it was more like Toriyama demanding that if he couldn't age up Goku, he wouldn't continue serializing the manga. His response was, "You can have the protagonist grow up, just don't scare me like that." This philosophy of defying expectations would influence his designs when creating archetypes and forms for the characters. Vegeta was an early example of this, as while he was the less imposing of the Saiyan duo in appearance, his command of Nappa and the general aura he radiated told you he was not one to underestimate and the real leader between them. Super Saiyan defied expectations by simply being a form, as Vegeta was calling himself one every chance he got despite not being one. Frieza and Cell subverted the expectations their previously more monstrous forms already set up. If you forget, 19 and 20 were meant to be the original killer androids until Toriyama was encouraged to pivot twice. One of those times having the killer androids being teenage cyborgs. Buu himself was an entire subversion of a Toriyama villain in and of himself, being Toriyama's way of having fun and returning to his gag manga roots. After all, you can remove the man from gag manga, but you can't remove the gags from the man. These characters have iconic designs now, but once you look through their scrapped concept art, you realize their final shapes came from the results of rigorous redesigning. Classic characters born from the toils of trial and error. The most Toriyama would contribute to GT was some designs here and there, but it was Katsuyoshi Nakatsuru that created Super Saiyan 4 and most of the other designs beyond the Dragon Team. In the production for Battle of Gods, Super Saiyan God was initially designed by Tadayoshi Yamamuro to be a mix between Super Saiyan 3 and 4, but with a cape added to it. However, Toriyama redesigned it to make Goku look younger and just change his base form hair red. This would kind of be the basis for his simple designs going forward. Another change is that Beerus was apparently going to be more lizard-like in appearance and a lot more sinister of a character overall, but Toriyama decided to change him into more of an Egyptian cat-like character. But honestly, his designs for the next forms look better than the movie and shows they come from. Super Saiyan Blue was his next step into the new era of forms. Golden Frieza followed in the same vein, having distinct subtle differences while at its core remaining normal Frieza. Pretty much most of the major characters from Super, while some coming from the editorial room's suggestions, came to life through Toriyama's designs. Interestingly though, while Toriyama was told to bring future Trunks back in an arc, he was the one that decided the villain should be in the same vein of a false Ultraman or false Kamen Rider, simply because it's a concept he wanted to try out at least once. He contributed to DBS Broly by touching up on some designs, like making corrections on Chilai and Lemo, which makes sense because they have that pretty distinct modern Toriyama style to them. He slightly touched upon Broly, telling Shintani to make him look as huge as possible without going overboard. Shintani wanted to make the movie strike a balance between the old Z era art and the modern style Toriyama employed. And that's why I think DBS Broly has such a distinct style, because it combines both in such an interesting way. It's clear the Gammas were inspired by tokusatsu like Ultraman and Kamen Rider, down to the later generations being more silly than the originals. Originally, he designed Beast Gohan to have pale skin, but thought that was a bit too far. The common theme about these modern designs is how Toriyama really defied expectations for how Dragon Ball characters were expected to look, especially after GT set up an expectation for new Dragon Ball designs. Nothing can show how unpredictable Toriyama's mind is than his top favorite fights list. You would expect among here are legendary fights between Goku and Vegeta, or Gohan vs. Cell. While some fan favorites are here, he has some surprising picks that just make so much sense when you realize who he is and what he enjoys. Number 5. Goku vs. Frieza. He felt he was able to express the fight effectively, and fulfill his promise to his assistant by making inking Goku's hair a non-factor. Number 4. A tie between Krillin vs. Bacterian and Gotenks vs. Boo. He always preferred to create sillier fights, and found the idiocy in them what he enjoyed creating the most. Number 3. Goku vs. Raccoon. While pretty much as one-sided as you can get, he felt it was a satisfying payoff to Goku's arrival on Namek. He says, "It would be fair to say that I drew out the Frieza arc for so long just for the sake of this scene." Number 2. Young Trunks vs. Mr. Satan. Mr. Satan was definitely his favorite character at the time, and he enjoyed making this fight short and silly. And number 1, Goku vs. Demon King Piccolo. He says that despite the fact he forgot a lot about Dragon Ball over time, and the fact he says he tends to not dwell on things he made in the past, he would still never forget this fight. He was able to deliver a terrifying villain, and from there he knew the direction of Dragon Ball going forward. Once Toriyama divorced himself from Dragon Ball, he took a much-needed break from the series, but he didn't stop his creative journey. He created lighthearted comedies like Kawa, a manga he considered his favorite to create in a 2014 interview, Kajika, and Neko Majin. The last few serialized solo manga he created were Sandland and Jocko the Galactic Patrolman. He considers Sandland a man's comic, a story he poured everything he was into at the time, intended to be his last hurrah. Jocko, however, ended up being his last manga he would do himself from start to finish. In that J-Wave radio interview with the editors I talked about earlier, we learned that Toriyama wasn't really thrilled to bring Dragon Ball back. He enjoyed working with certain characters again, but he really wasn't engaged with the series anymore. This is why he simply had notes that Toyotaro and Toei had to work from, as he wasn't interested in putting in much more effort than that. He no longer felt that same inspiration that he did before, but in the last few years, something came back to him once a new project had been brought to his attention. In the Tokyo Anime Awards Festival 2024, Toriyama received a Lifetime Achievement Award and has some comments to say in December of 2023. He talked about his experience with animation and how he got to work on some projects, and also how anime inspired a sense of speed in his manga. But he ends off the letter talking about the new anime project in development at the time. Apparently, Dragon Ball Daima, which will unfold starting in 2024, was originally supposed to be made as an anime original series without my input, but as I gave advice here and there, I ended up getting majorly involved. This time, I created not only the story, but the world, the characters, the mechs, all sorts of things. It will be a smorgasbord of different things, and not just intense action, so I'll be pleased if you can enjoy watching it. Finally, thank you so much to all you fans who have supported me up until now. Perhaps because of my lifestyle when I was younger, I have no real confidence in my health, and I don't know how much more I'll be able to do. But I'll do my best, aiming to make even more enjoyable work, so please keep supporting me from here on out. I'll go into Daima in a future review, so no spoilers here. But Toriyama was not lying. This series has his fingerprints everywhere. From the designs to the story, everything feels like something he would create. And no matter your opinions on the show, I think it ended up being a great tribute to him. The fact that one of his last projects was given life through his hands is just something I'm really happy about. The thing about Toriyama is he never cared about what other people wanted or found cool. When he catered to what people wanted, he did it in a way that made people go, "This is dumb," or "This looks stupid." But I don't think that stupidity was necessarily lost on him. He thrived on the idiocy of gags. And I'm sure that just carried over into his design philosophy and story writing. It's really just his style as, honestly, a comedian. He made what he found entertaining first and foremost. He wouldn't always try to appeal to the audience, but he inevitably made things that would appeal to certain people. And eventually, it would just become the norm, the mainstream. No one else can think like he did. No one else can replicate the insane imagination he possessed. He didn't follow standards, he created them. Thank you for everything, Akira Toriyama. Wait a minute, that's it! I know what I gotta do! I gotta beat him my own way, with my own authentic self. Leave them alone, or is picking on the defenseless all you can do?
Ah, you're back. I honestly can't deny your accusation, considering how helpless you were against me last time.
You got me there, but things aren't gonna go the same way as it did last time.
What is that? Trying your little Kaioken trick again?
No, this is even further beyond!
What is that form?
You like it? This is my true form.
You look so stupid. Where did you come from, The Simpsons? This has to be some kind of a joke.
Alright, laugh it up, man. But this form is far easier to use than the last one.
What do you mean?
With my true, authentic style, I can draw me destroying you 10 times easier.
What?
Sorry, man. It was kind of rude of me to start causing havoc like that. I was just frustrated because I've been playing a game called DMC Devil May Cry lately, and that game sucks. Like, really sucks.
No worries, man, but next time, just go see a therapist for something like that.
For sure, man. For sure.
And hey, if you're willing to stop your evil ways, I'm down to let bygones be bygones and be friends. Deal?
Sure. Why not? Deal.
Thanks to my good friends Salad Saiyan and OfyBurger for being part of this video. This one took weeks to make with all the research and art I had to do for it. But I hope you guys found it entertaining, and if there's anything you'd like to share about Toriyama, make sure to leave it down below. My channel has had insane growth for being so new to this content. I'm hoping we're able to hit 1,000 subscribers soon because, man, the support has just been incredible. Thanks for anyone who stuck around to the end of the video. I hope you have a good day, and see you all next time.